So you want to upgrade your weapons, and it's early game maddening, or you're just playing the game and you want to know what weapons are good, not on maddening, to upgrade. All right, so let's go to the smithy. So the smithy unlocks, I think, in the end of chapter 4 or 5. It's pretty early, and what you can do is you can refine items, which improves their stats. You need crafting materials. You can engrave items, which cost bond fragments, and it provides different buffs to that item. And only one item can have a specific engraving, and no other items can have that engraving. And if you engrave a new item with the existing engraving, you will lose it on the previous. And then you can also exchange. So for example, if I wanted to get iron, I could trade in a silver for that. Now early game, so how did I even get the silver? I put a dog out and I got a silver. You put dogs out in your farm, they grab you metal. After every post battle, you can check. So the more dogs, the better. So getting silver early on, like getting a silver or getting some steel early on, will really help you upgrade. So I'm actually going to convert this because silver is only really useful mid to late game. All right, so what are good weapons to upgrade? I'm going to go over the different stats of all these weapons, like briefly. Not the exact numbers, but like what they do. So slim, compact weapons, mini bow, things like this. These weapons have very low damage, very low weight, and very high hit. They also have some dodge, which you can see there, which really just prevents you from getting crit. But they're really good on units that have high might that have bad accuracy. But generally, you shouldn't need these, and they're not really that useful. So you probably should skip them. The next tier is iron. Iron has slightly more weight, more might, and a little less hit. So iron's a little bit stronger. So if you want accuracy on a unit who has bad accuracy, using iron weapons is an okay idea. Now upgrading iron weapons, I've actually upgraded quite a few throughout my first Maddening run, and honestly I regret it. It was not helpful at all. When you're using an iron weapon, you're not really using it for damage. You're using it to avoid getting doubled, and you're using it to put damage on something. Steel, I would say, is actually worth investing in. Steel tier weapons. The reason why is as you upgrade it, it loses weight. And then it basically becomes an iron weapon. Like the weight of steel is low enough that when you upgrade it fully, most units can either double with it because their build eventually gets high enough, or it's not a problem for them to use. So in this case, I'll upgrade this to Steel Sword Plus. Now I do need a silver, funny enough, so converting that. Now, the funny thing about this, I need a silver, but I can't. Either I didn't have enough iron or I didn't have enough silver, so it's whatever. But we'll upgrade this to Steel Sword Plus. Steel is good just to get decent hit rate, to like deal good damage, and then eventually when you upgrade it fully, it has reduced weight. I used a Steel Lance Plus, or +5 on Chloe the entire run of a Maddening run. Like the entire time, from when I got it to the end of the game. And it consistently was one of her best weapons. So steel is definitely worth investing in. Armor Slayer, I'm not so sure about this one. I've read online, like some people like it, but you can see here the weight is really heavy, so even if you upgrade it, you're looking at a very heavy weapon. Now it's true that its Armor Slayer effect is useful. However, you can just always use 11 Sword, which tends to bypass armor because most armored units have bad res, and 11 Sword has less might, but it targets res, which scales your damage up, usually more than an Armor Slayer anyways, so I don't recommend investing in that. Liberation, I invested in this on my first Maddening run. It's decent. It takes a bit to get it to being good. It's not a bad weapon. It's definitely viable. You can invest in it if you want to. I'm not going to in this run, just to use other things, but I used it the entire run and it was fine. It eventually gets outclassed by another sword that you get very late game, but you get it very late game, so you can use this like the entire game essentially if you want to upgrade this. Okay, so let's go over spears now. All right, Slim Lance, I would say you probably shouldn't upgrade it, and you can check the upgrades to see. The thing that's weird about it though is its weight doesn't go down as it goes up. You have to invest. You don't really have to invest much into it to get it up. But are these stats good though? 5 weight, 9 might. Like, is that even good? Let's check this. Let's compare this to this. So it has 2 The difference between 5 and 7 weight only really matters very early game. Most units eventually get enough build to wield this, so if you're just going to go for a cheap weapon that you want to increase its damage, iron isn't bad, but then if you look at steel, steel starts off at 10 and gets down to 8. This is like endgame ready. Like this is worthwhile. I would say you should stick with steel. Honestly, steel is like the best for early to mid game, and then silver is really good for mid to late, but silver usually is a little bit heavier, so it's a little bit harder to get its weight down. But I would say steel is good to invest in early. Javelin, I invested in a javelin early. It kind of paid off to some degree. It eventually gets outclassed by certain other things later on, like flame lance. Investing in it early though, I don't recommend it. I think it's a waste. I think your javelin should just be used for last hitting and putting some chip damage on things. I don't think you should really invest in javelin. Rider's Bane. So this is kind of similar. So this one kind of has like the same issue as the Armor Slayer, right? Like it's very heavy. So you could use this on like tanks or something, like Luis, but I wouldn't use this on like a cav unless that cav has high build. The accuracy is so-so. It costs a little bit of money to upgrade it. Now it is a good weapon, and there are a lot of enemies, but you always have like emblems. So Sigurd gives you a Rider's Bane that's better than this. So if you just have a Sigurd, you can basically just have like an upgraded Rider's Bane. So I would say you can invest in this if you want, but I don't really recommend it. Alright, so axes. Compact axe, I didn't buy one. You can get it if you want. It's just like, same thing with a slim sword. Weaker, less weight, more accuracy. Alright, iron axe. Should you invest in an iron axe? I don't think so, to be honest. I actually got an iron axe +4, and I barely, I used it for early game chapters, but it doesn't really help that much. The accuracy is okay. You have to get it quite high before the accuracy starts getting +5. I don't want to pay thousands of gold for +5 hit. Steel, honestly, the fact that steel gets hit increase, big damage, and loses weight is massive. It's just such a good, it's probably one of the best things to invest in is steel, as far as I can tell. Alright, hand axe. Yeah, if it doesn't lose weight, it's only going to be useful on slow, high build units. So you can use this. I did have a hand axe +4 I used for a while. It was okay. It's going to be used on a unit that's not doubling, so the weight doesn't matter. So that such units tend to always get doubled themselves. You can upgrade it if you want to, but I don't recommend it. I'd say just focus on steel. Alright, then hammer is kind of similar to Armor Slayer. This one, looking at the cost, so right away you get some more damage and hit, which is nice for the first upgrade, and the first upgrade is relatively cheap. Then for the second upgrade you get more damage, and it takes max upgrade to increase its accuracy. The hammer isn't bad, but you could always just use magic, right? You're going to have mages on your team, so I wouldn't recommend upgrading this either. You can just kill armor with mages, it's much easier. Alright, so for bows, we have the mini bow. I didn't even really use it, it doesn't seem that good. It's lightweight, but most units have at least 5 build to use an iron effectively. So iron bow, should you upgrade iron? I wouldn't. Honestly, use this for chipping and last hitting, upgrade your steel bow. And then longbow, I don't believe loses weight. Yeah, longbow is always quite heavy, and a lot of these archers have a hard time wielding it. You can upgrade this, though. I wouldn't do it early game. I would do it late game. Actually, looking at its cost, you can't upgrade this until mid-game. The steel, it requires silver and steel to upgrade. Because it does require those resources, I wouldn't upgrade this at all, to be honest. This is too expensive. One of the traps that they place in this game is they give you these resources, and it's kind of hard to get silver and steel, in general. And one of the mistakes I made on my first Maddening run was upgrading things like the longbow, and I didn't even realize that it was consuming silver and steel, because you just see that it's lit up and it costs 2k, and you're just like, oh cool, I can upgrade this, and then you get it to +3, and you've wasted all this silver and steel on a stupid longbow that's 3 damage higher. It doesn't double in most situations, and it's not worth it. I would just skip it. Alright, then for tomes, should you upgrade these starter tomes? I don't think so, to be honest. You can. I don't think you should. I think you should just hold out until you get better tomes. You can upgrade if them you want, but I wouldn't. For daggers, I wouldn't upgrade the iron dagger. Yeah, I would wait until you get a better dagger. Get a steel dagger. For these things, I wouldn't upgrade these at all. The units that use these early on, it's just not worth it. Like the punching weapons, like you can increase her damage so she can actually hit for damage, but most of the time she's just healing things or using utility stabs or chain guard, so why should she be punching things? It's just like a waste. You can use it if you want. I don't recommend it. Alright, so for engravings, so this is early game. Alright, so the engravings, you want to engrave a weapon you're going to use for a while. It costs you bond fragments, so I know for a fact I'm going to be using the steel sword for a while. So I can put a few different things on it. Take note of what each thing does. So beginnings gives you +1 damage, +10 hit, +10 crit, +5 avoid and dodge. So this is good on a weapon that either doubles already or is lightweight. Now this steel sword eventually will become less, it'll become like 7 and then 6 weight over time from upgrades. So I don't need a weight reduction on this weapon. I could use Holy, which also gives you damage, avoid, and reduces weight, but I'd rather use that on something else, and I'll explain why. Echoes just increases crit avoid, reduces might, and reduces weight. This one, I'm not a fan of this one, to be honest. I mean, there's a use case for it, but it like crit avoid I don't think is the best stat. And then you have Dawn, which kind of does the same thing, but at least it gives you +40 avoid, so it can make you an avoid tank. So I would say we can just throw beginnings on this for the damage and hit increase, or Holy if you want. Yeah, so let's just do beginnings, because its weight's going to go down, your character's build's going to go up. Eventually you'll be able to double with it to certain enemies. Okay, and then the next item that I would recommend upgrading, so I would upgrade a Steel Lance. I think it's a pretty good weapon. You can upgrade to Chloe's. Like if you're going to be using Chloe, I would give her this. I had she had a Steel Lance that had Holy, and it was insane. It gives her a void, increases her damage, it reduces the weight of the item, and then as you upgrade the lance, it reduces its weight even more, and then it's just a really good solid weapon. It's literally end game ready. You can't go wrong with this. This thing was super reliable for me on Chloe. And you can just give it to another unit. You could use it on any spear unit. You can use it on Louise. I don't recommend using it on Louise because he's never going to double. So why give him a good weapon whose big upside is doubling? He's better off with something like Rider's Bane, so he can like stab a horse for more damage. That's more of his thing. But Steel Lance, this thing worked out really well for me. Pretty much steel weapons are the best. Okay, and then for other weapons, let's see what else we want. So I can make someone a dodge tank, right? But I want to be mindful of the weapon because it reduces its damage. So making like Luis a dodge tank would not help because he already doesn't take damage. So I think I'm going to hold off on using these other engravings. So I'll just go to like some weapon arbitrarily. Yeah, because they both reduce damage. Now, getting +40 avoid is insane. Don't get me wrong, this helps you make an avoid tank. However, with basic positioning, the early maps shouldn't pose this much of a challenge that you need to use this. But let's say, for example, I want to make an avoid tank build. So let's target, let's see. Let's look for a weapon that already has avoid. I want to just make some unit be crazy dodgy. Certain weapons have avoid, I believe. Maybe not. Dagger Zoo? No, they don't. Okay. The loss of damage, though, is huge, like especially on a weapon like daggers. The only thing that I would really recommend putting it on is a weapon that hits really hard, but even so, if it's on a unit who doesn't have high strength, losing damage is a huge detriment. Okay, let's try... I could try this. He loses 3 damage, though. That's so bad. Yeah, I can't stomach it. It's too much. Reduce it, like, there is a use case for these. Like, making an avoid tank is useful.
I'll be here.
But I think we need better weapons before we bother with that. But that's pretty much it for this early game upgrade guide. Basically, just steal weapons. Conserve your resources, upgrade your steal weapons. And then also, you can do the ring exploit. I'll make a video on that. Choopy made a video. You can check out Choopy Choosy's video. Or it's just Choops now. On his channel, he made a video on how to get S-rank rings relatively easily for your other units. This is definitely good in like the early game. Like late game, it doesn't matter because everyone just has emblem rings, but early game, it definitely matters. But yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you found this useful. And as you can see, Sami is very cool. So be sure to comment, Sami is a cool guy. And I'll see you in the next one.